I'm Matt Miller.
And I'm Hannah Elliott, and this is Hot Pursuit.
All right, we have a special guest with us today that I'm pretty excited about, somebody I've been watching for a solid 15 years on YouTube and podcasts that I listen to a lot. Also, Hannah, you are driving, I guess, a Mercedes GLE AMG 63?
That's correct. Yes, V8, a mild hybrid V8, 605
The coupe version. Actually, tell us about that for a second. Before we get to Roman, and we're going to talk to Roman Mica, who founded TFL, TFL Studios. They have a million different channels. I've been watching them forever. But why don't we just quickly first talk about the AMG you're driving, and also mention our email address. I always forget.
The email address is hotpursuit@bloomberg.net. And if you write us, we'd love to hear suggestions, comments.
I've been getting a lot of awesome suggestions. Yes. We respond to, obviously, all the emails that we get. But yeah, definitely shoot us an email, hotpursuit@bloomberg.net, and we will get back to you. But let's get into the Mercedes real quick before we get over to Roman.
This is the Mercedes AMG GLE S Coupe, which is a really long and unwieldy name. It looks like every other Mercedes SUV, kind of like a rounded jelly bean, I guess. But it's the AMG version. 605 horsepower, like mid 600 torque, V8, mild hybrid. But I have to say, it only gets like 15 miles per gallon in the city, and like a combined 16 miles per gallon. So just because it's a hybrid does not mean it gets good efficiency, but the power is incredible. It starts at like 130,000, and the one that the one that I have, which is painted in like this really cool sort of matte chalky gray with bronze calipers, I just looked at the press sheet, it's like 148,000. So it's a lot of money. And it doesn't look like, people won't know that you spent that much if you see it.
True.
They see it.
Well, that's one of the things about Mercedes vehicles. I felt this way about the EQS that I drove, and then I also drove a GLE, the like one step down from what you're driving, the AMG 53. But from the outside, like, you barely notice them. They're not ugly per se, but they're not amazing to look at. When you get in, you're just cushioned in this, endless cave of leather, and
it's really opulent.
Yeah.
And with carbon fiber and like two-tone suede. The one I'm in is like sort of a red orange with black, Alcantara everywhere. Like I said, carbon fiber accents. Honestly, it does feel really luxurious. It may be a little too busy. I can see where it's really borderline, like, they probably optioned in maybe too many options on the interior, because it's pretty busy with all of the buttons and technology and vents and everything. I mean, compared to the Cybertruck that I just got out of, which has no buttons, it has a single screen on the dash. It's like the exact opposite.
That's interesting.
But, it does feel really opulent inside.
I mean, I'm in love with the MBUX system, which is the infotainment.
It's the best in the business, best in the industry, for sure.
Totally agree. And I don't like a totally Spartan cockpit that doesn't have any buttons. Mm-hmm. When you do, BMW in a sense has like taken out all the buttons, and then they've given you this incredibly complex. Mm-hmm. I mean, iDrive is getting worse. Mm-hmm. So I love the Mercedes MBUX system and the fact that they leave some physical controls in there.
Me too.
But yeah, I think the interior is amazing, and maybe it is a little too busy in that. I can't remember how that looked. I love it in the GLS, which I just got, and I love that powertrain, because they do a fantastically turbocharged V8, and adding that mild hybrid, although it doesn't get you a lot of efficiency, it gives you so much kick.
Yeah, it's kind of unbelievable. It's even, I mean, I just drove it here today from Hollywood to Century City, and it's really rowdy. It's fun. It doesn't look like anything special, really, unless you really know what you're looking at. And the valets at certain restaurants really do, because they see everything. So they do get excited when they see this coming. But yeah, it's cool. It's cool.
Do you know what I would? Somebody should safari that. Like, I know it's too expensive to do it right away, but I would like to see a Rally Fighter version. Remember the Rally Fighter kit car from back in the day?
That would be very cool.
Yeah,
with like fog lights and racks and like I don't know,
a lift
under a guard. Yeah,
some real sidewall.
That'd be cool. That'd be cool.
Yeah. All right, maybe our next guest can do that at some point because they test so many cars and they buy a lot of the cars. I think they even go back and buy cars that they liked years ago just to kind of build a collection. And they're pretty focused on off-road, although they have a million different channels. So without any further ado, let's get to Roman Mica. He is the founder and I guess president of TFL Studios and alltfl.com. Why don't we kick it off, Roman, by you tell us what you guys are doing right now, because you've grown the business so much. You bought a big ranch. You have a bunch of people on air. So what's the story with TFL?
Yeah, I kind of copied, Peterson, who started, there's Peterson Auto Museum, but he also started Motor Trend. So I kind of copied his business model. What he did was, back in the day, California was full of aerospace engineers, and they all loved to build hot rods. And so he started this magazine called Hot Rod, and then he figured out, these guys also like guns and ammo, right? So he started Peterson's Guns and Ammo. So we did kind of the same thing. We started with TFL Car, and I thought, people who like cars probably also like trucks. And so we have to talk to them a little bit differently than we talk to car people. So we started TFL Truck, and we kind of built it into, 8 different YouTube channels that talk to 8 different people or car and truck people in different ways based on what they love. And it's been a whirlwind pleasure ride because I've always loved cars and trucks. And to be doing something I would do for free and get paid for it is beyond a dream. And more importantly than that, I get to do it with my son, who also somehow got the car gene.
Tommy.
And so I get to work with him. Yeah, Tommy. And I feel very blessed. And I want to thank you guys for having me on the show because I'm a big fan of you guys. I love what you guys are doing. And I really enjoy, going on a drive or on a run and listening to you guys. So thank you for having me.
Thanks for saying that. I want to jump right into basically hear what you think about electric trucks. I mean, you've done this for so long now and you've seen the landscape change. Oh, that face says a lot. So I want to know, what are you seeing now in the landscape, especially with the introduction of electric trucks, including the Cybertruck, which I just drive, so it's fresh on my mind. I would love to know where you think that fits. And then also, just in general, these trucks that are over $100,000. I write about luxury things. Trucks are entering that segment. So, Roman, tell us sort of how you're seeing the lay of the land these days.
Yeah, like outside of motorcycles, I would think to myself, trucks would be the very last kind of vehicle that would go electric because, trucks are used for 3 different things, basically: hauling, towing, and for the most part, going off-road. And electrification doesn't really work well with any of those unless you're doing it for little short stints. So we bought one of the first Lightnings when it first came out, the Ford Lightning, and I wanted to see, can you actually road trip this thing? So we drove it from Detroit all the way up to Prudhoe Bay, which is as far as you can drive in America, at least as far north as you can drive. And getting from Fairbanks to Prudhoe Bay is 500 miles. And that was quite the struggle because we put on little off-road tires, we put on a camper so we could camp. And that's where I kind of, hit the reality of owning an electric vehicle. And that is, it's a pain in the butt, especially if you don't live in places where there is a great electrification network. And the problem then you run into very quickly is if you live in LA, then that's not a great town for trucks. So you have chargers, but it's also not very truck friendly. And then we bought the Hummer EV and we took that off-road, and it left me stranded in Moab, which was no fun. I finally got it to work. Left me stranded also over here in Longmont, which was no fun. And we have the Cybertruck coming as soon as, when Andre, who's managing editor of TFL Truck, was watching the unveiling of the truck when it happened like 4 years ago. I was actually there. He ordered ours right away. So we've had an order in for it, since the beginning, and we should get a foundation series. But yeah, the Cybertruck is a whole nother beast, right? Because traditionally trucks have been kind of 3 boxes. The front has been the drivetrain, the middle has been where people sit, and the back is where you put stuff in. And they've always kind of been a work tool, right? Ram likes to say it's the biggest tool in your work chest. And the Cybertruck has gone completely away from that. And what I mean by that is, like, if your plumber shows up in a Cybertruck, the first thing you might be thinking to yourself is, I need another plumber.
Yeah, he's way too expensive, I think.
you guys also, and I feel like it was positive, you had a Rivian for a long time. I don't know if you bought it or you got a long-term test vehicle, but I watched a lot of testing that you did. You really brought it to a ranch and did truck stuff with it.
Yeah, that's one of the things we do. We actually, load hay in the thing and haul logs with it. And I kind of feel like that's something people used to do with trucks, but now trucks have literally become, right, the family truckster. It's what people use for everyday transportation. So that 3-box theme probably is a little bit antiquated. There's that story where Musk likes to tell that his son asks him, why are trucks the shape they are? And he said, good question, let's make it different. And for the longest time, the reason that has been that way is because they're work tools, and that design has been the most functional of the work tools. And yet now trucks have become family haulers, they have become status symbols. And so I think what trucks are is completely changing. Matt, you love, Rams, and actually you love, Chevys with Duramaxes, right? And
Yeah.
do you own a ranch? I mean, do you, haul a giant camper?
I don't.
Or do you just love
I don't
that?
even really go off road. Like, I just
Yeah.
enjoy the space, right? I'm a big person,
Yeah.
and I have a big family, and usually there's a dog with us, and we have a lot of stuff, and it's just like you're not going to find more second row legroom in any SUV than you will in a crew cab pickup truck.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, they're great. I think, I kind of feel like America has lost much of its automotive leadership to different countries, right? Once upon a time, we used to build these incredible, luxurious cars, and then the Germans kind of came over and changed the definition of luxury, right? It's no longer about being soft and comfortable and kind of wading down the interstate. It's about going on the Nürburgring and seeing how fast you can go around it. And then, of course, during the oil crisis, the Japanese kind of took the efficiency away from us. So the most American vehicle that you can buy now, I think, is a truck. And if you go to Europe or if you go to Japan and you kind of try to explain to them, what American trucks are, they kind of look at you and just kind of scratch their head because they don't understand. I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. So from my house to Phoenix is 1,000 miles. How many turns do you think I need to take from this office to get to Phoenix? Take a guess.
About 4.
Exactly. Yeah. I hang a right at
Yeah.
I-70. I go down into Mexico. I hang a right, hang a left at Flagstaff, and I'm in Phoenix. And there's no other place in the world where you can do that. And that's where trucks just shine. Like you said it, 25 cup holders. You and I could probably sit in the back of a full-size truck and put our legs out all the way and probably not hit the back of the seat. But I think that's what's making trucks now, not just work tools, but the thing that most Americans want. I mean, I know people still prefer SUVs, and we've gone from sedans to SUVs, but that's kind of a moving target. I think it's kind of moving more toward trucks. And I think that's where the Cybertruck comes in. I think it's become kind of the ultimate statement of what the next generation of truck could be, which is really not a truck at all, right? The thing probably doesn't do very well off-road, at least we have been able to take it off-road. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but when Tesla did the unveiling of the Cybertruck, they had like 3 publications who actually reviewed it. They had Top Gear, they had Jason Knisma, and they had Marquise Brownlee, right? And none of those 3 publications actually tested it as for what trucks traditionally do, which is, hauling stuff, towing. Well, there was that Porsche towing thing, but that was kind of silly, and going off-road.
Camissa
So I'm
loved
curious.
it.
We'll see how it is.
Camissa
But
loved
right now,
it. Hannah, what remind people what you thought about the Cybertruck?
Well, actually, I was surprised that I liked it. I would say that. To your point, Roman, I rented it from Turo, and the man who owned it asked me not to take it off-road and not to really do anything rugged or anything that you would want to do with an actual work truck.
She put her dog in it, though.
I did put my dog in it because, come on, I mean, that's my baby, and also it's a dog. It's a work truck. So it was very coddled in Los Angeles. Obviously it looks very polarizing, and charging's an issue, and so is parking. But I'm curious, Roman, though, do you actually think that electric trucks are just a trend or a fad, or do you think they're here and they will be here in 10 years?
There's no going back.
15 years.
I think Ram's got it right with the new plug-in hybrid. I think, you really need something that has some kind of a range extender in a truck. And I think once again, like with all things electric, I think we tried to run before we walked, right? I feel like we were all rushed into going electric, and promises were made that didn't necessarily fulfill themselves. And so, trucks became the new kind of it thing. And so everybody rushed to build an electric truck. And then, we took one and we, towed with it to its maximum capability. And we compared it to the gas version. I think we got, oh God, what did we do this with? We did it with the Silverado EV, which has an enormous battery. And then we did it with the Lightning. And I think the Lightning got just under 100 miles towing at its max. And that's not usable for anybody.
Did you take it up Ike's Gauntlet?
We did, yeah. It did really well. Tons of torque. So towing up the Ike Gauntlet, it did really well, but it's only 8 miles. So
that's a TFL staple, Ike Gauntlet. By the way, how did you find Andre, and how did you build this team? Because I know you started, or I think you started with Nathan, right? And Tommy, I know how you found him, and he's amazing. How did you find Andre? The guy is like encyclopedic when it comes to trucks.
Yeah, Andre's he's a software engineer by training. He was working with my neighbor at the time at Oracle. And so I got to know Andre through my neighbor, and he was a big Duramax guy. He had a 2500 Duramax, and he actually brought, here's the thing, like cars tend to be kind of right-brained and trucks are left-brained, right? So trucks are all about numbers, whereas cars are more about emotion. And that's the biggest lesson I've learned from Andre is that the truck people don't think like car people per se, right? They think about capability in a much different way than car people do. And so he brought that kind of mathematical rigor that we needed that truck people really appreciated. And so doing things like, testing how many times you have to hit the brakes going down the Ike Gauntlet, which is a good measure of how a truck can tow heavy load, or seeing, how much fuel economy, because heavy duty trucks, as you know, aren't rated for fuel economy. So he just brought all this numeric knowledge to the team, and he's been incredible. But thank you for saying that. I'll pass that along to him if he doesn't listen to this podcast.
So I'm really curious, Roman, what was the best truck that you drove in the last year? What has really stuck out in your mind?
I'll tell you, the truck that I have completely fallen in love with, we just bought the new Tacoma, and the old Tacoma was just a hot mess. It was like bickering spouses, the engine and the transmission. You'd be going down the highway and you'd be like, why am I doing 45? And thing kept upshifting and downshifting. And that new 4-cylinder turbo, same horsepower, but a lot more torque. It is so much better. And like you, man, I've driven, compact trucks, mid-size trucks, full-size trucks, and of course heavy-duty trucks. And I've kind of landed now in my truck journey at the mid-size truck because I can park it in my garage. I can park it, when I go to the store. It's got enough shoulder room. It's got enough headroom. That's the other thing about the new Tacoma. The old one, the floor was really high and the ceiling or the roof was really low, so you kind of sat out with your feet straight in front of you, and I hated that. And the new one, they fixed that. We just took it to Moab. It did really great off-road. Gets really good fuel economy. So like I was telling you guys, when I used to drive that Raptor R, we were getting like 11 mpg in that thing. And now with the new Tacoma, I'm getting anywhere from 22 to 25 mpg. And it's got enough towing for what I use it for. Really love that truck. Really, really love that truck. Can't wait to actually drive the hybrid, which is more about power than it is about fuel economy.
Can you still get the Taco with a 6-speed? Can you get it with a manual?
Nope, 8-speed. Oh, you can get it with you can get it with the manual. It's an 8-speed automatic now, which is great, by the way.
What's the price range? Like with the hybrid, do you know what that's going to hit at?
It starts at like ours was 45, so we bought the off-road, TRD off-road, but they start in like the mid-30s, and then we don't know the pricing yet on the new TRD Pro. That's coming out in the next, hopefully, 2-3 months, and so I don't think they've announced pricing on the top dog ones yet.
How did you? By the way, before we continue on with trucks, and I want to because I spent many hours watching you guys test out the TRX when it came out, and then the Raptor R, which you mentioned. But you guys buy a lot of your own vehicles, and other than like Consumer Reports and a few of the biggest magazines, no one else does that. How do you guys get started doing that? And how many vehicles do you have?
We have, I think, about 15 now. So we have everything from Fiat Cinquecento. We have all the people's cars, right? The cars that got like the different countries moving. So we have a Classic Mini, a Cinquecento, a Deux Chevaux, and
does that run?
And a Beetle. So we have all those, and then I love muscle cars. So like you, we just bought a classic Mustang. We bought a '68 California Special GT. So we have all these kind of classic cars, and then what we usually do is we buy mostly trucks and then keep them for a year. And the reason we do that is because there's two reasons. First, when you shell out the money for them, your skin's in the game, right? So when things break on them, you don't just get it back to the press fleet and say, "Hey, your problem. It's our problem." And I think that gives you the ability to be much more authentic with the reviews, because when things go wrong, it really pisses you off because you become inconvenienced. And then the other thing, let's face it, I mean, there's this kind of symbiotic relationship between journalists, especially in America, and the manufacturers. And so you're always kind of walking kind of a tiptoe line. And I know a lot of people say you don't, but I think, if somebody gives you something, you feel kind of like you owe them something. Whereas when you buy them with your own money, you feel like you don't owe anything. So I like buying things because it makes us completely honest and completely real. And we don't have to kind of pull our punches. I'm not saying we pull our punches when it comes from the press league, but there is this kind of symbiotic relationship, and you do want to keep in good stead with the manufacturers. Having said that, we did get blacklisted by Ford, so
I remember that.
That's good. I think that's healthy.
Blacklisted by Ford. Plus, I remember
and
when
Subaru. We're still blacklisted by Subaru.
Badge of honor. Badge of honor.
And you got in trouble
wonderful.
with Porsche when you tested the 911 up against a Nissan van.
Oh, that was not good. Yeah, you remember that. Thank you. We were learning.
Smart.
We were learning a job. That was my bad.
All right, let's get to the super trucks, because you guys did a ton of content on that, and I watched every second of it. What do you think about supercharged V8s in a pickup truck, doing ungodly times, and they're huge and they're loud, but people love them, right? What do you think about those big trucks? And which one's your favorite?
The TRX. I just love it. I love the TRX. I think we were the first ones to have it. I'm saying that very proudly in America. So I picked it up at the factory and drove it back, and I just fell in love with that truck. That was probably the hardest truck to sell, but there's also a part of me that feels like I have to be responsible, and I also don't like being too ostentatious, and I think that's where personally I really run into issues with the super trucks. I feel like you're showing off a lot when you're driving those, and it feels weird, especially with a truck. So I don't like being ostentatious, and I don't like using vast amounts of fuel, but damn, do I love those trucks. It's like the little devil and the little angel. One of them's like, get the TRX. The other one's like, no. And it's always this kind of tug and pull situation with those. But as much as I love the TRX, the best way to kind of describe the difference between the Raptor and the TRX is definitely the sledgehammer. And the Raptor R is a scalpel, right? It's much more precise in the way it approaches things, whereas the TRX just, boom. It's like the TRX is a guy that walks into the bar, looks at you, and just punches you in the face. Whereas I think the Raptor R is the guy that walks into the bar, and you kind of look at him wrong, and then he kind of in a very British way, cuts you down to size. So they're both very angry vehicles, but in very different ways.
So is there one truck that you thought just failed miserably to live up to your extensive testing
Hummer
and
EV?
Expectations? Which
Hummer
one?
EV, yeah, we did it.
Really? Okay, tell us. Yeah.
We did an interview with the GM engineers, and we were like, hey, guys, come on. Where's your super truck, right? GM doesn't have one. They have kind of the ultimate ZR2, but it doesn't have the big engine. It's only it's a 6.2 with the 450
It's not
horsepower,
supercharged.
right?
I'll tell you what, you guys bought that and sold it quick. You dropped the ZR2 like a hot potato as well.
Yeah, I'll tell you why. Okay, there's a reason for that. So one day Tommy comes into and I love the color. We bought this kind of like the color behind me was this kind of beige color, right, Sam?
Cool.
And he comes in and he says, "That's hearing aid beige." And once I heard that, I could never get that out of my brain.
Can't
so
unsee
every
it.
time I looked at the truck,
Hearing
I saw
aid beige. Love it. But elaborate on the. So by the way, I had the ZR2 in bright blue, and I loved it. But tell us about the Hummer EV. Like what? I've never driven it. I've never even seen one in real life, I think.
And you said it left you stranded twice?
Yeah, twice. So we did this interview with the chief engineer for, I think it was a Silverado. We said, how come you guys aren't supercharging this thing? It's a huge miss, right? You've got the look, but you don't have the power. And he said, we're working on a truck that will, I think his quote was something like that will eat Raptors for breakfast or something like that, right? I'm like, oh, wow, this is going to be huge. And then, of course, the Hummer EV comes out, and I was super excited because, it has, I went to drive it at their proving ground. You know how they let you drive pre-production vehicles, and I just was, amazed. It had cameras underneath it, so you could see what you were running over. It would do 0 to 60 in like I think it was just above or under 3 seconds. In WTF mode. Even the idea of WTF mode was like, wow, these guys get it. They understand what American trucks are all about. And then I get the thing, and it was just so half-baked. Oh my God. We took it up this really hard trail called Red Cone, which is probably a 7 out of 10 when it comes to kind of Colorado trails. And there's a gatekeeper, which is this big rock that you have to drive over. And the Hummer EV has extract mode, right, where you can jack up the suspension so you have a lot more ground clearance. And what they don't tell you is that because it's so heavy, 9,400 pounds, we weighed ours. What happens is the air compressor just gives up the ghost after about 15 minutes of driving, and it just goes right. So we got stuck on the gatekeeper, so we couldn't get over that. And then
How did you
then
get
we thought,
out?
well, maybe we tried to pull it up with we had a Bronco. We tried to pull it up with that. We couldn't pull it up with that. And eventually, tugging and pulling, we got it over the gatekeeper. And then there's this really steep section, and it's got lockers, but one of them's electronic, and that immediately failed. And so then what ended up happening is instead of the truck going up because it weighs 9,400 pounds, it like dug holes into the ground. So as the wheels were spinning, instead of getting forward motion, you were actually digging into the ground. The one thing that was incredible about it was that four-wheel steering. It just made it so nimble. So when we got into the tree section, it was just, incredibly nimble. But yeah, it was. I think they just rushed it into production, and that's the other problem. When just like with regular race cars, weight is an issue off-road. And when you get that heavy, it just makes everything so much more cumbersome and so much more difficult. Even off-road. And at 9,400 pounds, it's a lot. She's a big girl.
I love that you weighed it
big
because when I asked them, GM wouldn't really tell me the weight, so
Yeah,
I
they
kind of
didn't
was
tell you.
guessing.
They wouldn't tell you.
But yeah, I love that you weighed it. That's very cool.
How did you weigh it? Because I recently had a HD truck that I wanted to weigh, and the only thing I could figure out was taking it out to some cat scales at a pilot station. Did you do the same thing?
That's what we weigh. Yeah, cat scales, yeah. That's
Cool.
part of my truck journey. I figured that out like 10 years ago. Did you do it? They give you like a little,
I did.
like a baseball card with a little truck on it with
Yeah.
the family that drives it. It's like collector cards at the cat scale.
I got a little printout, and I kept that, which was pretty cool. It's the only time I've ever weighed a truck. But I
That's cool.
looked around and couldn't find any other way. Do you do like the luxury SUVs? Hannah just spent some time in a GLE 63, the coupe,
Yes.
which I love. I don't think they're nice to look at, but they're very luxurious to ride in, and I feel like that's an a Mercedes thing. Audi also does it. It's like an Arab palace where from the outside it's not impressive, but from the inside it's amazing.
Opulent.
Do you ever drive those high-end luxury cars?
Yeah. We haven't been blacklisted by Mercedes yet, so we get Mercedes. I especially love the Maybach. Have you been in the Maybach?
Oh, yes.
No.
GLS Maybach? Oh my God,
Not
yeah.
a fan of how it looks, but that back seat.
Like I said, that's the thing with these
Yeah.
Mercedes. They just don't look great from the outside, but then when you're inside, you're like, this is perfect.
I know.
Have you opened up the back of that where it's got this refrigerator that takes up like most of the room in the back? Just incredible vehicles, so luxurious, so you just feel like you own the world when you're in one of these.
And your luggage can be in the car behind.
Yes, exactly, yeah. Yeah, we do these cars. How do you like your new Mercedes?
Well, I actually haven't got it. I haven't received it yet. It's currently being driven across country because I bought it out in Los Angeles at Galpin, and they're shipping it over in a trailer. So I'm going to be happy to have it. It's a GLS 450, not the Maybach, and not even the V8, right, the 580. So it's a straight six, and I think that's a great motor. It's very refined, and it's more affordable because I was looking at sort of 2020 or 2021 vehicles, and for the GLS 450 they were about $50,000, and for the 580 it was like a $15,000 to $20,000 jump. So I think I made the right decision with that. And the most important aspect for me is the second row legroom because I need to be able to fit rear-facing car seats in it. And you just can't fit rear-facing car seats in almost any new vehicle that's not a pickup truck without moving your front seats forward. And I don't want to be scrunched up in the front with the kids in the back. So that's why I bought that one. Of course, you had the Range Rover long wheelbase, and that's the other one that works with the rear-facing car seat.
Yeah, I think most people are afraid of the Range Rovers. My team now owns, I think, 4 Range Rovers in total. They all got into the LR3s, which is, by the way, the sweet spot. If you want a good off-roader that's going to last, you get the LR3. 2005 to 2008, I think, are the golden years for those. But yeah, we had ours for a very short time. And nothing went wrong with it. We took it off road. I forget just how good off road the Range Rovers are. By the way, we just also bought the very first GLS, and we found the kind of needle in the haystack. So we had the off road one, which had the off road package. So it came with skid plate, it came with lockers, and we took it to Moab. But that was a very unusual car that I think only like 4 of those exist in the U.S., and we had it for a while.
I'm really curious. What's your vote? New Defender or new Bronco?
Oh, God, they're very different. The new Defender is really stylish. And if you like you just mentioned the EV9, you can see that kind of shape, that design language is now kind of racing throughout the entire automotive world. So Jerry McGovern, who designed the new Defender, just knocked out of the ballpark with the look of that thing. But we took it once again up red cone, and it got stuck the same place. It got stuck because the suspension hangs down, and if you look underneath, there's not actually a lot of protection. So I think what they did, the old Defender was the traditional, tractor that the Brits used to kind of go off-roading with. The new Defender is much more of a people mover, a more of a suburban vehicle that looks off-roady. It's got those exposed screws, and it's very minimalist on the inside. But the Bronco is a real off-road. I'm not saying the Defender isn't a real off-roader, but if you were going to go seriously off-roading, and what I mean by that is like Moab or some tougher Colorado trails, the Bronco is going to be much better. So it depends what you want. If you want style and you want, something that you can haul the family around, definitely go get yourself the Defender, because the Bronco is pretty hardcore off-roady, and you pay the price for that in both its interior and its loudness. It's a very loud vehicle on road.
By the way, yeah, the Bronco is too loud to deal with as a family vehicle. I tried to convince the wife, and it was a no-go. Yeah. I agree 100% on the Defender. I said, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, that most people who buy the Defender aren't going to take it off-road. And therefore, I think the Kia EV9 is something that should be cross-shopped and is a better vehicle because they're both big family haulers, and they're both kind of rugged looking, but are going to stay on the highway. In terms of the Bronco, I wonder what you think about the engine choice. I love the vehicle. I wish they had put the Coyote, or better yet, the Predator under that hood. I've never seen anybody V8 swap the new Bronco, but it's something that I sit up in the middle of the night Googling because I would love to be able to do that, or put maybe a Cummins in it.
Yeah. I mean, when Jeep did it, when they finally put the Hemi in the Wrangler, everybody lost their mind about it. But Ford, I think a long time ago, and I'm thinking when I say a long time ago, maybe 10 years ago, just decided that they were going to go with turbos and with 6 cylinders and with 4 cylinders versus traditional V8s. And they did that with the F-150. They've done that with a lot of their SUVs. And I think that's just part of their kind of journey. And Bummer. I think last time I checked, which is odd, you'd think this would be higher, but I think only about 10% of F-150s are actually sold with that Coyote V8. So it seems to be working for them. I agree. I would love to see a V8 in a Bronco, but I don't think Ford's going to go that way.
And also, I mean, I don't know if you've tested the Land Cruiser, but I know you are doing the GX, which I love the way they both look. And you've got a picture of the GX behind you. It would be my choice because it's the only one that comes with the V6, and the Land Cruiser only comes with a 4-cylinder hybrid. But neither one can be had with a V8. Does it matter to you?
No, it doesn't matter. Like I said, with this Tacoma, it's a 4-cylinder turbo, and I just love the power. People, I think, also think when they think about turbos, they think back like in the 80s when I was, kind of growing up, and turbos were slapped on everything just kind of haphazardly, and they would overheat, and the engine would, lose a lot of its lifespan. Today, the modern turbo is designed with the block in mind, and so it's cooled. It works in conjunction with it, and it's just a completely different powertrain. So I love turbos for their fuel economy, and I love turbos for their power. So I have no problem. But the trick with the GX is get the overland, get the the off-roady one because it rides so much better. The I think the regular one comes with. I'm making this up now. It's either 20s or maybe it's 22s, but it's got a really un-Lexus-like ride until you get into the Overlandy one, which has, much more sidewall, and it just actually rides much better.
I hate the big, huge wheels. Hannah's driving the AMG 63, and I had driven recently a GLE AMG 53, and the low pro tires meant that I blew out a wheel as soon as I hit a pothole. Right?
Did you have to pull over and deal with it at that moment?
So it had run flats, and I was in the city, so I just drove it over to Mercedes, and they were, thank God it was a Mercedes because they know service like no other brand. I mean, I drove in there, it was spotlessly clean, there was a team of people waiting for me, it was awesome. But I don't remember what it was. I was watching a video, Roman, with you and Tommy, and something had 24s on it. And it was like
that's crazy.
Yeah, what?
I was just about to ask you about that. Yeah, you're on the same wavelength.
What was that?
Seen the new Suburban and Tahoe.
Oh, right. I mean, everyone's going with these massive wheels, which I'm always looking to put like 17s with the big, sidewall. But I guess they're making it work somehow.
I think it looks so cool, right? Whenever a designer designs a car, it's always got like 24s on it. If it's a Camry or if it's a Corolla, it's always rolling on 24s. And now, of course, we're actually doing that as opposed to just designing it.
You know what's wild, though? The Cybertruck had 20-inch wheels on it.
Yeah, I can't believe they didn't go further.
I was surprised they didn't go bigger.
I'm sure that
you can go. Maybe Tesla figures if you want to go bigger, you can go bigger. And of course, you're going to lose range, right? You're going to lose.
Sure.
You lose a lot in electric cars. You lose a lot of battery when you go bigger.
Let me finally ask you. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but you guys just bought the Ineos Grenadier, which I think is so brilliant. Most people haven't even heard of this vehicle, but basically a billionaire industrialist who also owns like a soccer team and some other stuff on the other side of the Atlantic, loved the Defender so much that he copied it and made his own version. I guess they didn't have the copyright anymore or something like that. And
I think he tried to buy it, actually. I think he tried to buy the Defender name from Land Rover, and they wouldn't sell it to him. And he said, you know what, we'll just build our own.
So, and now I thought they would only be in Europe, but I guess they've got 18 or 19 dealerships here. So tell us about the whole process of you getting it and just your initial impressions.
Oh, my God, it was so much fun. So if you go to their website, you can build your dream off-roader. So unlike the Land Rover Defender, you can spec this thing, which I did, with Steelies from the factory. You get KO2s from the factory. You get triple lock from the factory. You can get dual batteries from the factory. I stuck it's a snorkel, but people call it a high air intake because nobody wants to call it a snorkel because it doesn't give you more water fording. But this thing is like, if you had continued to build the old Defender, this is what it would look like. So it's built by Magna. No, it was designed, I think parts of it were designed by Magna. It's built in a former Mercedes-Benz factory in France. It was designed in Britain, and it's powered by a 3-liter BMW power plant that's in the Supra. So that seems like a recipe for disaster. Right? It's like one of those.
Well, it has Italian axles on it, right?
It does. It's
a real pan-European vehicle.
So I was like, this is going to be a train wreck, and it has some really unique quirks. So steering doesn't center itself. So if you go around a corner and you don't steer back, you'll hit a tree because they're solid axles. It doesn't. It's $80,000 when we bought. It starts at $75,000. It doesn't have power seats, nor can you get power seats. It doesn't have any of the modern, self-driving, which is also kind of weird. But oh my God, is this thing built for purpose to go off-road? So all the stuff that makes it, like solid axles are just really bad on road, right? They give you a bad ride. They're wandery. But all that stuff just disappears when you take it off-road. We took it to Moab. It just ate up the terrain, and everywhere we went, people looked at it because it is so unique and so distinctive. You know what it's like? It's like one of those like beautiful people in the world, right? Where you just look at them and you're like, oh my God, you get kind of weak in the knees, and then it's got this speed warning that if you exceed the speed limit, which really you do when you're driving out of the dealership, right? Because everybody goes like at least 1 mile above the speed limit, it starts beeping at you, and you're like, oh, that's annoying. So I'll just
You
turn
can't
it
turn
off.
that
So like
off yet?
well, you can turn it off, but then once you cycle it, it turns back on.
Annoying.
So then you can create a short so that you can keep turning it on, but every time you drive it, you have to turn it back on. Or back off, yeah. So it's like one of those, one of those vehicles that my friend Fred, when I was growing up, had this GT3, and it was a beautiful, not GT3, sorry, it was a what's a Triumph? TR3,
TR6,
right? Is that right?
TR6. Was there a TR3? I only know the TR6, but maybe there was.
I only know the
The
TR6.
TR6. Maybe it was a TR6. Anyway, it was beautiful, but so high maintenance.
No, you're right. There's a
And then
TR3 with a
TR3.
2-liter.
Anyway, you become so enamored with these vehicles because you give so much of yourself to keeping it on the road. And I'm not saying that the Ineos is going to be unreliable, because this thing was unreliable, but it certainly demands a lot of you when you drive it. And it demands a lot of you when you kind of off-road it. And that's what makes it so unique and fun and special, because it's not just, it's not the next refrigerator that's self-driving going down the road. So it's just got so much personality. So once again, it's one of those things like the Raptor R where it's like, I love it and I hate it, but I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's such a cool vehicle, and I'm so glad that Ratcliffe took it further. I wonder, you got to wonder if Land Rover is kicking themselves for not making a deal with him at first.
They left the market open for somebody to come along and do that, right?
I love that you guys didn't get you can paint the frame a different color than you can with the truck.
I know. I wish we had done that. I wanted to paint it red because it's just so sexy. But
That's
yeah,
cool.
we didn't do that because I heard I was like you. I was on the forums and I heard that if you do that, it takes you longer to get it. And so I didn't want to delay getting the vehicle because we have a red frame.
Do you know how many they plan to make and sell in the U.S.? Do we have any
Any
idea?
I don't think they've announced production numbers, but like Matt said, there's only 18 dealerships. There's also a truck coming. There's a truck version of it coming, and last week they announced an electric version, which looks like a baby G-Wagon if you see it.
Well,
Thank God you're pretty.
I'm so pumped that you guys got that, and just another reason for me to watch more TFL. So
I have a final, very important question for Roman. If cars are right-brained and trucks are left-brained, what are motorcycles?
Oh gosh,
they're brainless.
No brain?
They're no brain for sure.
That's what my wife would say.
You guys must ride bikes, right? Now that you bought the ranch for the organization, do you take dirt bikes out there?
Yeah, we have a bike channel. But let me answer your question. So I think bikes are the purest form of motorized transportation, just because they're the most engaging out of anything, right? When you're on a bike, this is like living life, right? Because there's a sense of danger to it, which may or may not be true depending on how many people are texting next to you. But I've never felt more free than riding a motorcycle down the road. You smell everything, you hear the machine working underneath you. You are connected to the road in such a way that is much different from a car, because now you're part of this elaborate dance where it's not just kind of driving to the store. You're actually living in that moment, and that's why I love motorcycles, because everything I do when I ride a motorcycle goes out the window, right? It's all about being in that moment and living in that second, because that's what the motorcycle demands. And if you don't do that, things get very ugly. And that's what I love about motorcycles. I love when it starts to rain on you until the boots start getting wet. Then it gets no fun.
You got skin in the game, dude.
Yeah.
Skin in the game for sure.
Yeah.
I feel the most alive when I'm on a motorcycle. I've never felt that way, even on a racetrack in a car. Maybe because the cars are always, there's something around you, I guess.
The cage in
How about you, Matt? What do you love? What do you love about motorcycles?
Well, I'll never forget the day I saw my first Ducati Monster in the late 90s in Frankfurt, Germany, and I was just captivated by the look. I had always wanted bikes before that, but I wanted Harleys, just kind of the idea of it. And I didn't realize what it would be like to try and push around a 900-pound Ultra Glide. But when I first saw that Ducati Monster, I said, one day I will have one. And I've now had at least 6, and I've still got 3. For me, it's the freedom, it's the kind of meditation. It's like TM, right? Because when you get out there, in a way, nothing else matters, and your brain just goes by itself, also you've got to pay attention. So maybe it's two different planes. But the other thing is obviously they're obtainable. So many of these cars that we talk about, especially the ones that, like Hannah had this McLaren, what was it, 750S?
750S Spider. That's like
which
$350,000.
I'm sure it's amazing, but it's $350,000. Like, or the 911 ST. Sure. Even if I had $300,000 to buy the car, I still am not on the right list to be able to allowed to get it. So, motorcycles, I could buy one and have another one in case that one was in the shop, and then I started like building up a collection, and I just think it's for the everyman, it's so much more approachable.
Yeah, and I think there's also a much different community around motorcycles. Like I've never gotten burned buying a motorcycle, right? You go to someone's house if you're buying a used motorcycle, and they're like, "Oh, this is wrong with it, and here are all the parts that I have. You can have those." It's never like you're never like, "Oh my God," They're trying to help you, and they understand that you're also part of this kind of more caring community, I guess. And that's what I love about motorcycles. It's just like here in Colorado, and this is maybe a Colorado thing, but whenever you're on a bike and you pass somebody, you always wave to each other. Is that something that happens in LA or in New York?
I would say it happens in LA, but it also happens in cars. People who drive Porsches tend to wave at each other. Some people who drive Ferraris might flick their lights or something like that too.
I think, it's different, right? Because on a motorcycle, I feel I'm almost obligated to tell somebody, give somebody the wave, and no matter what they're on. Like, I would feel like a snob if I didn't give someone the wave who might be on a scooter or, on a Harley. It doesn't matter. It's true. Like, I remember I sold an R9T one time to this guy, and not only did I give him the bike, but I hadn't advertised. I gave him all of these other parts that I had bought for it and hadn't even installed yet.
That he was required to take with him no matter what?
No, I was just like, oh, dude, you got to have this also and that. And I'm losing money on the deal already, and I'm giving him stuff. And my wife's like, what are you doing? But you definitely feel a tighter bond with other motorcycle riders than because you're putting it on the line every time you go out there,
we were just talking about this at the bike shed the past week about how I do think everybody who rides a motorcycle really believes that the world would be a better place if more people rode bikes, and if there were fewer cars on the road and more two-wheeled motorcycles on the road. And I do think any person really on a motorcycle, if you see someone on the side of the road stopped on a motorcycle, you're going to pull over and stop. There is really a sense of tribe. And it's a sort of a universal tribe of motorcycle riders. Before
we get too kumbaya, there was a dude, I don't know if you saw this video, who just rode his, I think it was a Kawasaki maybe, I don't know. He rode it from the Springs to Denver in like a half hour. Did you see that? And then eventually got arrested because it usually takes about 2 hours. So I think he averaged like 100, it may have been more than 120 miles an hour.
He needs a timeout. He
yes.
needs a timeout. He needs
there
to
are
think
those
about
guys.
His
I
life.
always see him on the BMW S1000 RRs. They're doing videos where they're doing more than 200 miles an hour, and you're thinking this is not okay on a public highway. No. But I guess there's a bad apple in every bunch. Roman, thank you so much. Really appreciate you joining us. Great to, meet you online. Look, we have a podcast that's across the country. We're in New York, Denver, and LA.
That's right.
So cool.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, well, that does it for our podcast this week. We'll be back same time, same place next week. And remember to shoot us an email because we love hearing feedback. We love getting suggestions. Sometimes we need a little help. If anybody wants to recommend something for me to do when I'm in Denver or I'm in Vail, I'd love to hear from you. Our email address, Hannah?
It's hotpursuit@bloomberg.net.
hotpursuit@bloomberg.net. So definitely shoot us an email. And it's been great spending an hour with you. I'm Matt Miller.
I'm Hannah Elliott, and this is Bloomberg.